Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 489 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asked you to hear me out. I'm going to start this episode by saying I don't necessarily believe in quote-unquote basketball gods. I know that that's a thing that people, especially in the basketball realm, talk about a lot. The basketball gods this, the basketball gods that. And I don't necessarily believe that. But what I do believe is that when you do things in good faith, or you do things in bad faith, the fruits of your labor, whether good or bad, will always come back. I want to start this by saying I pray for a speedy recovery when it comes to Kyrie Irving. In a season that was filled, and that has been filled, with turmoil when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, the one bright light in this entire season has been Kyrie Irving. I think he missed maybe 12 games, but the games that he was playing, I think he was the only player in NBA or in the NBA this year that was shooting, over 20 points and was shooting 50, 40, 90 possibly. Kyrie was having a incredible season. Another underlining topic for this show is going to be about coverage and how we cover these athletes, how we cover former, present, future athletes. Now, no, I'm not going to go into the whole media versus NBA thing. I talked about that last episode. If you want to go check that out, check it out. But again, I wish for a speedy recovery when it comes to Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, the other night, tore his ACL, out for the season. Again, when I say it has been a turmoil-filled season for the Dallas Mavericks, this is just yet another example. Look at how we looked at the Dallas Mavericks before the season started. They just came off of an NBA Finals appearance. They get Klay Thompson. You have probably and arguably the best backcourt in the NBA in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. You think to yourself, okay, we got to the finals. We got to a conference finals. We are going to run it back. Look and just imagine the hope, the excitement, the joy that that the Dallas Mavericks had going to the season compared to how it is being a Mavericks fan right now. I said I don't believe in sports gods or anything, but I do believe in the energy that you put out, you're going to get back. It has been talked about for the longest about, obviously, the Luka Doncic-Anthony Davis trade. And contrary to popular belief, I know that when the trade happened, I was unsure if Dallas should be considered a championship caliber team. But when you look at the players that they had, when you look at, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, along with Daniel Gafford, along with Derek Lively, along with PJ Washington, that is a formidable team, especially when you talk about the Western Conference. So when you look at that roster, perfectly healthy, might I add, I can see why the Dallas Mavericks, again, I'm not saying I would make that move, but I can see why the Dallas Mavericks would trade a Luka for Anthony Davis. Because when you look at what's left over, that is a team that can compete for a championship, especially in the Western Conference. That's a big team. But when the trade happened, And you hear all the reports coming out about, how the Mavericks viewed Luka and their fears about Luka moving forward and their displeasure with Luka and his fitness and their displeasure with Luka and his defense. It felt like at every single turn, the Dallas Mavericks put out a story, put out a quote, put out something to discredit Luka Doncic in hopes to make the trade look better for them and to have the fans kind of come back to their side. Because trust and believe, it has been tough sledding for the Dallas Mavericks organization when it comes to the fan base. You trade a 25-year-old superstar for another superstar-ish type player that has injury history. So it's been tough sledding. But like I said, while I don't believe in basketball or sports gods, I do believe in the energy that you put out is also the energy that you receive. And when all the reports are saying that they were dishonest to Luka, it came out of nowhere, and you keep continuing to bash Luka on the way, you traded him. Okay, cool. But you keep continuing to bash him. I'm like, okay. Since the Luka trade has happened, what has happened with the Dallas Mavericks? Well, Anthony Davis looks like the superstar that you traded for just for him to get hurt. Then Derek Lively gets hurt. Then Daniel Gafford gets hurt. Now you have this Kyrie Irving injury. And then reports are saying that Anthony Davis, more than likely, because Kyrie Irving is out, and it's an incredible long shot at this point for Dallas to even compete for a playoff spot with the roster that they have. Now they're saying that Anthony Davis is leaning on shutting it down for the season because he's just not healthy. I'm not blaming anybody for these injuries, and I'm not saying that these injuries could have been prevented. All the injuries that happened were in game. Basketball is a sport, and you hope that nobody gets hurt, but you never know. But I do think it's coincidental, or let me say this, I don't think it's coincidental that all these injuries and everything that could possibly go wrong for the Dallas Mavericks since the Luka trade has happened. Kyrie Irving was having an all-NBA season. Again, if there was one thing that was going right this season for the Dallas Mavericks, it was Kyrie Irving. And thank God for technology. I don't think that Kyrie Irving's career is done. I think that he's going to come back. I'm not going to say better than ever, but he's going to come back, and I think he's going to be as shifty as his body allows him. He's undoubtedly the best handler of the basketball in NBA history. Yes, that's over Steph. That's over Allen Iverson, my favorite player. That's over Jamal Crawford. Kyrie Irving is in a league of his own when we talk about ball handlers. Kyrie Irving is one of the most vicious offensive weapons the league has ever seen. One of the reasons that outside of the All-Star game being what it's been these last few years, outside of the success that the one-on-one tournament has had for the unrivaled league, one of the reasons why fans have been so excited for a one-on-one tournament is to see players like Kyrie Irving excel, because he is a prime one-on-one candidate. Kyrie Irving I think he's a first ballot Hall of Fame. And I do want to credit Kyrie one thing that I say a lot is I want your play on the court, on the field, whatever sport, to be louder than whatever happens off the court, especially if it's negative. And I think that for a period of time, especially how he left Cleveland, what happened in Boston, what happened in Brooklyn, I feel that off the court was getting louder for Kyrie than on the court. And whether justified or not, because I think that a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about Kyrie was his personal opinion. And a lot of people take his personal opinion, takes maybe some things that he did. Obviously, the whole tweet thing or the whole IG story and the documentary was a blunder. But I talk about a lot that people don't like individualism when it comes to sports. In fact, especially in a team sport, individualism is usually frowned upon. You want someone to be as uniformal as possible. Great, but uniformal. You want them to be all team. And people don't like when you have a personality. And I think that that's kind of what got in the way of Kyrie Irving. And on top of that, he was growing. He didn't know how to be a leader. He said that in Boston. He said that in Brooklyn. And one thing that I love about Kyrie Irving is he has stayed true to himself. There's a lot of things that Kyrie may believe, may not believe, that I don't agree with. But I also understand that I don't know Kyrie Irving like that. I know him as a basketball player, and I think he's a great basketball player. And his play this year has, in my opinion, allowed a lot of people to forget what happened in Brooklyn and what happened in Boston. And I think that he's been the leader that he has grown himself to be. He has to be. When you trade Luka, it's your team. Which is why it sucks to see Kyrie Irving go out like that. It sucks to see exactly what has happened to the Dallas Mavericks organization since trading Luka. And with the news coming out that I believe that they're trying to raise ticket prices by like 8% next year for Dallas. That's just horrible timing. My opinion, man, I understand inflation is a thing. I understand that. You want to make a profit, but this is a fragile time for the Dallas Mavericks organization and their relationship with the fans. You traded away the future. And you're hoping that what is in the present can allow them to, I guess, lack of a better term, forgive the organization in injury after injury after injury. Mind you, and this isn't obviously this doesn't compare to injury, but Klay Thompson hasn't been playing that well either. So it's like, what do they have to cling to? And now that you're talking about raising prices again, man, I pray for Kyrie Irving, and I pray for his mental. A lot of people don't understand, like, and even me, I played basketball my whole life. Obviously not on the level of an NBA player, but injuries suck. I've never had something as major. Thank God, I've never had something as major as an ACL, but I have broken, bones, and it's tough when you want to be out there and you can't, especially when basketball is what you do. So I pray for Kyrie mentally. I pray physically. I hope that he's able to return stronger than ever. And it's just crazy to see what's going on with this organization since the Kyrie Irving trade. I mean, since the Luka trade. It is crazy that in a span of, let's say, a month, the season is essentially over for the Dallas Mavericks. And the icing on the cake is now Kyrie Irving going out with a torn ACL. So I pray for a speedy recovery. Speaking of speedy recovery and speaking of season being over, I didn't talk about it last episode, and I'm not going to go in depth about it because it's essentially old news at this point, and that is Joel Embiid getting shut down for the season. When your best player goes out, obviously, I think the season is essentially over. Philly doesn't have, or they haven't shown the structure to withstand losing a player like Joel Embiid for a long period of time and them being able to maintain as a playoff caliber team. Paul George hasn't been playing well. Tyrese Maxey is honestly the only player that's been playing well. Even though Quentin Grimes did have a pretty good game a couple days ago against Golden State. He had like 44 or something like that. So I'm not here to break down the injury. I'm not here to that's been done. Hell, I kind of alluded to that last when I said that Philly is cooked. I kind of alluded to it. What I really want to talk about is what's next and how I believe that this is the most important moment in Joel Embiid's basketball life. I feel that what happens next is going to define Joel Embiid forever. Let's be candid here, man. Joel Embiid is in that Brandon Roy. He's in that Tracy McGrady. He's in that Derrick Rose, Greg Oden class. As in, injuries are defining his career. Yes, we know how great he can be when he's healthy. I mean, he won an MVP. He has a 70-point game. We know how great Joel Embiid can be. But again, he's kind of falling into that, yeah, but. Well, I know, kind of. He has fallen into that, yeah, but category because it seems like every time we talk about Joel Embiid, it's either A, him getting hurt, or B, him not meeting expectations in a playoff series. The highlight, obviously, of his career is an MVP, which, even in that MVP, it's still questionable because a lot of people, including myself, kind of feel like the MVP should have went to somebody else. So when we talk about Joel Embiid, it's always a yeah, but. And now, kind of like Dallas, in a sense, look at how we look at the Philadelphia 76ers now compared to what we're talking about before the season started. Another big three was formed. Now, yes, there were still questions because of injury history, but Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, perfectly healthy, should compete for a title. I mean, Paul George, even though, yes, I understand it was in the bubble, but Paul George, or it was during COVID-ish, he led a team to the conference finals. Now, Joel Embiid has never been to the conference finals, but again, he was an MVP. So when you form that along with Tyrese Maxey, the future, you think that they're title contenders, and they should be. But kind of like Dallas in a sense, injury after injury after injury has essentially derailed the Philadelphia 76ers season. Which is why I think a couple episodes ago I said that they're cooked. Because not only is their season essentially done due to injury, I'm not saying that nobody is untradeable. Hell, we saw that with Luka. But I will say that Joel Embiid and Paul George are as close to untouchable as possible because of their contract, because of their injury history, it's going to be tough for anyone to trade for them. Or it's going to be tough for Philly to get anyone to trade for them because they're the red flags that they bring, it's tough. But this is what I was talking about, and this is what I mean when I say that the next step is the most important for Joel Embiid. He's been shut down for the season. That's already been discussed. I think we are past the point of rushing Joel Embiid back. Meaning, I don't think you can possibly in your right mind think that you want to rush Joel Embiid back for the start of next season if he is not completely healthy. That's what I'm alluding to. Joel Embiid has to get completely healthy. Hell, the 76ers are thinking about and trying to find a way how they can medically retire Joel Embiid. They have mismanaged. I think it's a smorgasbord of faults when we talk about this Joel Embiid situation. The organization, Joel Embiid. I don't think Joel Embiid should have played in the Olympics. Yes, I understand how important he was to the Olympics, especially the last few games and his matchups against, Nikola Jokic or Victor Wembanyama. But I don't think if you're not, and people killed Kawhi Leonard for it. The story was, if Kawhi Leonard knew he wasn't completely healthy, why would you even show up to the tryouts? Why would you even show up to Team USA if you knew that you weren't able to go? Hell, people were giving the Clippers organization hell. Why would you let Kawhi Leonard even participate if you knew he wasn't perfectly healthy? The same smoke that the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard got should have went to Joel Embiid. He was just healthy enough to step on the court, but you even saw he was laboring the entire Olympics. So my thing is, yes, I understand how important it is maybe to him or obviously to the United States for winning gold, but your health is the most important thing. And while I'm not saying that if he didn't play for Team USA, he wouldn't be here, but what I'm saying is if he didn't play for Team USA, he would have more time to rest. It is extremely important for the next time we see Joel Embiid play, he has to be perfectly healthy. And I mean that in the sense of, I don't even care if it takes another season. Joel Embiid, the last thing you want to do is rush yourself, especially already being, when the team is talking about medically retiring you, that means that they're seeing something that's probably so far gone that it will never be in 100% shape to play basketball. Not saying you can't play, but it's probably never going to get 100% right. So they're trying to find any way to get off of you. And we've seen the light at the end of this Joel Embiid tunnel. We've seen how good he can be. We've seen the potential that Joel Embiid has. At his best, fully healthy, playing his best, Joel Embiid is arguably one of the greatest has the potential to be one of the greatest centers we've ever seen. When we talk about his offensive ability and his defensive ability, when healthy, when playing at his best, Joel Embiid is in that pantheon of great centers. The issue is we haven't seen Joel Embiid healthy in a while, which I will give credit to Joel Embiid. I think that he's played unhealthy a lot of times. The way that he labors his leg, something's going on with his leg. He's been pushing through. But now that he's been officially out, or been ruled officially out for the season, the next time we see Joel Embiid has to be when he's completely healthy. And it would be unfortunate. But I do think that there's things are starting to make sense now. Like, a lot of people were questioning, why would Joel Embiid sign that extension when he's good enough for a max contract if you just wait? Well, now we know. Maybe he knew he wasn't healthy. And I think maybe him and his camp knew, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it to the end of the season. Obviously, he hasn't. So why not wait for an injury to occur so then they say, you know what, we can't pay you, bro. You got injured again. It's tough because, again, man, this is yet another player that finds himself in that Derrick Rose, Brandon Roy, Greg Oden class. Potential. And yes, one thing that Joel Embiid has that, Brandon Roy, Greg Oden, T-Mac doesn't have is an MVP. But outside of that, it just sucks. But I'm pleading to Joel Embiid. The next time we see you, bro, I pray that you're healthy. Even if it takes longer than the start of next season, even if it takes 2 seasons. Hell, look at Lonzo Ball. It took Lonzo Ball, 2.5, 3 seasons total of not playing basketball? And while obviously he's not a premier player anymore, at least he's able to play. And at their best, Joel Embiid is much better than Lonzo Ball. I don't mean to offend. I'm just being honest. Lonzo Ball had the luxury and the foresight to be like, you know what, I'm not ready to play. And I know a lot of people were saying, well, this could dip into a Ben Simmons type situation. And I don't agree with that. Because I think Ben Simmons, the optics of Ben Simmons played it completely wrong. With the whole, suing the Philadelphia 76ers to pay him when he didn't show up, and the whole practice ordeal, the whole thing between him and Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid, and obviously everything that went on when he was with Brooklyn. It seemed like, I could be wrong. Obviously, I don't know Ben Simmons personally. I don't know anybody personally, but it seemed like Ben Simmons wasn't going to try everything to get on the court. And it felt like he was content with not playing. That was the optics that was kind of forming around Ben Simmons in that whole ordeal with the 76ers and with the Brooklyn Nets. Joel Embiid, we've seen him labor around the court. We've seen him not be 100% and still play and still be effective. So I don't believe this is going to turn into a Ben Simmons situation, especially if he has to miss extended amount of time. But I do think that, and I hope that he understands the importance of this next step. Not just for his basketball career, but just for his life. A lot of times, nobody talks about it because it's something that is obviously obvious, but you don't like to acknowledge it. And that is sports, these athletes, this is hopefully, Lord willing, this is a small part of their life. I think Cam Newton said it, bro. You're making a huge amount of money in such a small part of your life. And while it's so difficult, especially when you're in it, you don't want to hear nothing about hey man, you might need to sit out another year, or you might want to get this surgery. Not if obviously you can play right now, but if you get this surgery, you won't be able to play. However, your quality of life will be 10 times better if you get this procedure and just sit out a little bit. No one thinks about that because it's team sports, bro. You want to be out there for your peoples. But I just hope Joel Embiid understands the importance of this period of his life, and understands that if he can and wants to play basketball again, which, again, he's still, when healthy, one of the best players in basketball. Again, just a year ago, he had a 70-point game. I hope the next time we see Joel Embiid on the court, he's completely healthy. Because the last thing, and I think if there is a proverbial nail in a coffin, I think the final blow would be if they rush him back and you can clearly see he's not healthy, and then he gets hurt again. Then he has to miss an extended period of time. That wouldn't. Nah. I wish for the best. Speaking of best, let me say shout out, and let's move forward to Saquon. Let's say shout out to Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. Saquon Barkley agrees to a $41.2 million contract, making him, Saquon Barkley, the highest paid running back in NFL history. What's funny is function or what's hilarious is the Giants had enough money to make this happen. And while I don't think that Saquon Barkley on the Giants would have been the key piece to a Super Bowl caliber team, I do think that they would be much better off with Saquon Barkley than without. This is, as much as I don't want to do it because I'm a Commanders fan, this is just another great, smart move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley was the main reason, offensively at least, that you won the Super Bowl. And the last thing you want to do is make your stars question how you feel about them as an organization. I know when a lot of people see these type of contracts, they always go, the only thing they really hear in that sentence is $41.2 million and highest paid running back in NFL history. And for some reason, their mind always goes to, Saquon Barkley is not the best quarter or running back in NBA or NFL history. It's not what they're saying. What they're saying is Saquon Barkley is worth this much money and worth this much to the organization. And it just so happens that number is the highest for whatever position, in this case, the running back position in NFL history. And I said this before. The Philadelphia Eagles have 2 Super Bowls in their franchise history. They've been to 3. They have 2. Actually, I don't know if they've been to 3. I know as of recently they've been to 3. And they go to 1, win with Nick Foles. Nick Foles gets a statue It makes sense. They win. Saquon Barkley is essentially their MVP of the year, and they pay him handsomely. And the part that sucks if you're outside of Philly is they still have enough to make moves. I know they cut Bradbury, they cut Darius Slay, which helps with their cap space, and they have enough to go get someone like Myles Garrett. I hope that they don't get him, obviously, as a Commanders fan. But it goes back to, why do you think they say the rich get richer? When you see players go to a team like Kansas City, or when you see the Eagles after paying Jalen Hurts, after having someone like Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, and now having the highest paid a two-year extension, having Saquon Barkley being the highest paid player or running back in NFL history. How do you think that they have the money for that? How do you think they have the wherewithal and the ability in a salary cap league to continue to make these type of moves? Because they are smart. Excuse me. They understand how to manipulate the market. They understand how to, when someone should get paid, when they shouldn't get paid. They know these type of things. It's the difference between a competent and an incompetent team. Here's my thing. I understand that not everyone operates on the same plane, meaning there are some affordabilities that some teams have more than others. This isn't baseball. Like the Dodgers just doesn't have an unlimited bankroll, or the Yankees don't have. It's not baseball. So yes, everyone has pretty much the same market, but the market helps when we talk about NFL more than baseball. If you're the Nationals and you can pay $500 million for somebody, it don't matter if they don't like DC or not. $500 million is $500 million. While you have a salary cap in NFL, geography and how the organization treats their players matters more, because you can only pay a player so much. And when you see an organization like the Philadelphia Eagles keep getting it right time and time again, or when they keep doing right by their players, you get situations. I don't remember the last time the Philadelphia Eagles had a issue. In fact, the last time I can remember, and obviously I'm not a huge fan, so I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody in the comments would tell me. But the last time I remember Philly having an issue with their players is what? Terrell Owens, but he had more of an issue with Donovan McNabb. They get it right, man. And this is why they're going to be formidable yet again next year in for a Super Bowl. And trust me, when you are like 100 yards away, think about that. Think about this year for Saquon Barkley. You go from the Giants to the Eagles. Not only are you on the verge of breaking multiple records. I think he was on the verge for having I think he was close to breaking the single game rushing record. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Hard Knocks or NFL Mike picked it up. Nick Sirianni went to him and was like, yo, you want to do this? He was like, nah, I'm good. He was 100 yards away, and I killed the Eagles organization for it. He was like 100 yards away from breaking the single season rushing record held by Eric Dickerson for 40-some years. 100 yards away. And instead of going forward against the Giants, they sat him out. So he became the ninth player in NFL history to rush over 2,000 yards. And you go from being the ninth player, you go from that to winning a Super Bowl and being a huge part and a very important part of that Super Bowl. At least Super Bowl run, and then now you are the highest paid running back in NFL history. When it's like a full circle moment. When the main reason why you're on Philly is because your former team, the Giants, were hesitant in paying you, and quote, couldn't sleep at night thinking paying a running back that much money. Well, even if the Eagles don't even make it to a Super Bowl, Saquon Barkley has done enough, more than enough, to earn that type of money. And as much as it sucks, as a Commanders fan, it's a smart move, and congratulations and shouts out to Saquon Barkley for agreeing to a 2-year extension, being the highest paid running back in NFL history, especially after last season. Much, much deserved. Speaking of much deserved, and speaking from a Commanders fan, Commanders had some big news. They traded Deebo Samuels for like a 5th round pick. And on top of that, a lot of the Deebo Samuels is a huge contract. A lot of the contract is going to be eaten by the 49ers. And a lot of people are asking me my opinion as a Commanders fan. And it's interesting when you hear a lot of takes about this. And I'm going to dip my toe in the take bucket. I think it's great. I think it's great that Washington was able to get Deebo Samuel, especially for how much they got him for. A 5th round pick for someone as capable a football player as Deebo Samuel is damn near a highway robbery. Now, I understand that last year, or the last 2 years, weren't the best for Deebo Samuel. When we talk about injury, when we talk about some of the things that he was saying, and maybe his unhappiness with the 49ers organization. And one thing that's not talked about, I believe Nick Wright said it, so shouts out to Nick Wright. But one thing that isn't talked about is, yes, they talk about Deebo Samuel was unhappy with the organization. And you can have think piece after think piece about what happened. The thing that is kind of concerning to me is it wasn't like you're on a bottom feeding team. It's not like you were on New Orleans Saints. Unfortunately, they've been a bottom feeding team as of recent. You were on a Super Bowl caliber team in the 49ers, and you still weren't happy. Now, a lot of that unhappiness can come from the fact that you were a Super Bowl caliber team. You made it to a Super Bowl, and you essentially didn't win. And, your competitiveness in you, I get that. Or the fact that you see all these quarterbacks around you, whether you talk about, Matthew Stafford, who's in your division, whether you talk about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. On a lesser extent, you still have Justin Herbert, you have Jalen Hurts. And then you look at your quarterback and Brock Purdy, and while Brock Purdy is good, there's still levels. And I don't think he's on the same level as the aforementioned quarterbacks that I just named. So that can be a little frustrating. I do think that he was a little bit overweight. He even said, I think, came out he was overweight. But I think that I also believe that Deebo Samuel was viewed as the number one option, at least wide receiver wise, for the 49ers. I understand that you had Brandon Ayuk. Shouts out to him. I understand that you had Juwan Jennings, who's been great. Hell, I understand that you had Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. Both incredible, both all-time players. But when we talk about the wide receiver position, Deebo Samuel was number one. He was the number one option at the wide receiver position. You're going to a team when you're not expected to be the number one. At least at this point of his career, Terry McLaurin has shown to be better than what Deebo Samuel has put on tape these last 2 years. But one glaring issue that we saw last year with the Commanders was when we talk about the offense, not having reliable receivers outside of Terry McLaurin. Yes, shouts out to Damani Brown, shouts out to Noah Brown, but they're not on the same level as Deebo Samuel. And I think that Deebo Samuel going to an organization, one that wants him. When you're traded, when all this stuff about, essentially, when you're trading for a 5th round pick and you're Deebo Samuel, the team just didn't want you. And they're eating up so much dead cap space or cap money because you got traded. They obviously just didn't want you on the team. So that could be motivating. You're playing alongside a quarterback that a lot of people think could be one of, if not the best quarterbacks, at least in the NFC, in Jayden Daniels. I think this will help Jayden Daniels. I was as wrong can be when it came to Cliff Kingsbury. I will apologize now. I thought that Cliff Kingsbury has had a record of teams catching up to his offense, catching up to his teams when he was a head coach at Texas Tech, when he was a head coach at Arizona. He had a reputation of teams catching up the second half of the season, and that was kind of I was nervous. But he was incredible last year. I mean, again, the Commanders made it to the NFC Championship with essentially one solid receiver in Zach Ertz. So I think that the fact that Deebo Samuel can play running back, he can play, he can be a deep threat, he can be slot, he can do a lot, which made him so deadly in 49ers. You get that. And I think with the pieces that they have, you're not going to ask, and the creativity that Cliff Kingsbury has, you're not going to ask Deebo Samuel to do a lot. Just be a second option, and you still have enough money to hopefully get someone, maybe trade to get a Myles Garrett, hopefully have enough money in the free agency market to get players. This is a huge thing for Washington. I'm excited, man. I think that this could put the offense over the top, but I'm still, again, ultimate team sport. I'm still waiting to see what happens with the defense. Because that, in my opinion, was the biggest issue last year was our defense. When we talk about, especially the secondary. Now, I understand that Marshawn Lattimore is there, but he struggled mightily against Philly in the conference in NFC Championship. So I don't know, but we have, I think, the third most cap space, maybe third or fourth most cap space in the league to operate. So hopefully we get some pieces. But being able to get someone as dynamic and as good, especially, I think the one thing that does hurt Deebo Samuels is his play style, in the sense of he's a very physical player. And while you love to see that, you do subject yourself to injuries more often, which is what we've seen with Deebo Samuel. I don't even know if he can really change his play style in that sense, but I think that he's a second option. And if he was a first option, I don't know. But because I don't know if with the injuries, I don't know if he's that with his career. But yeah, I'm excited. And I think that I'm still waiting to see some more moves that Washington's going to do. But with this being essentially the first domino for Washington, and you get Jayden Daniels, another piece, man, I'm excited. We've talked ad nauseum about the Jets. And we talked about the moves that are going to be made, especially when you don't reach your goals. And we've already seen these moves, a lot of these moves happen. They got a new coach in Aaron Glenn. They got Aaron Rodgers up out of there. So and then the news now is Devontae Adams was released yesterday. And the reason why this is big because this is essentially, I think the Jets save like $29 million with Devontae Adams off the roster. So this is huge. What I wanted to do was I wanted to give my top 5 landing spots for Devontae Adams. I understand that a lot of these probably can't happen or maybe not even won't, or maybe won't happen because of, in fact, I try to do realistic places. Like, I think a great place for Devontae Adams could go is the Ravens, but I don't think the Ravens have enough money to have Devontae Adams. I don't think that they can afford Devontae Adams, especially seeing as though he was released and not traded. Maybe if you trade him, yeah, but I don't think that, especially when they have to figure out how they're going to, is Mark Andrews going to be back? They still need to pay Ronnie Stanley. I think Devontae Adams would be great for the Ravens. I just don't think he could fit money-wise. So the 5 landing spots that I picked sort of makes sense and sort of could happen. It's just, I don't know if they will. But I was wondering, where do I see Devontae Adams at as a player? And what I mean by that is, I think it's undoubtable. It's not even questionable. At his peak, Devontae Adams was the best wide receiver in football. With his route running, with his dependability, with his catch radius, Devontae Adams was the best wide receiver in football at his peak. Obviously, I don't think that this is his peak. But I still think that he is a top. It was a tough situation in Oakland. It was a tough situation, or not Oakland, I'm sorry, Vegas. And it was a tough situation in New York. I still think Devontae Adams has a lot left in the tank. I don't think he's on the same level at this point of his career as a Justin Jefferson, as a Tyreek Hill, as a Jamar Chase, but I still think that he can be a top tier receiver if used correctly. And I think that a lot of these spots that he could go could change the trajectory, at least of next season, for a team. That's how good I think Devontae Adams still is. He just needs the right opportunity. And I'll just start. Again, these are the top 5 landing spots for Devontae Adams. Number 5 is the Patriots, New England Patriots. Now, I will admit that I don't think that getting Devontae Adams makes the Patriots a Super Bowl contender at all. I think the Patriots are far away from a Super Bowl. I do like what they're doing, getting Mike Vrabel as a head coach, and Drake May showed great strides last year, and I think that he is the perfect quarterback right now for the Patriots, especially for the future. But one of the biggest issues is they don't have a dependable player outside of Drake May. And while you need to fill out the whole team and have a great team, you need somebody that is dependable for your best player, which is why I thought T. Higgins would be perfect. And I still think, I know franchise tag, and they're saying that he could be tagged and traded. I think T. Higgins going to the Patriots would be perfect. If they're unable to get T. Higgins, maybe Devontae Adams. I don't think Devontae Adams is a number one option anymore. I kind of put Devontae Adams in the same boat as I put someone like Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs is still great. I think Stephon Diggs is still a game changer. I think Stephon Diggs can still be a very important piece to a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't think with the injuries of Stephon Diggs, the age, I don't think that Stephon Diggs is still a number one receiver. When you talk about Devontae Adams, with the age and just the last few stints, I don't think he's still a number one receiver, but I still think that he can change or help a quarterback and help an offense tremendously. And I think that you put him on a Patriot team with Drake May, it gives him a dependable receiver. Again, I don't think that his presence makes the Patriots a Super Bowl contender, but I do think that it helps Drake May leaps and bounds, especially if they're unable to get someone like T. Higgins. So, number 5, I have the Patriots. Number 4, I have the Bills. I think that he's better than Amari Cooper right now. And as we saw last year, the Bills' offense can be explosive if you have a dependable. You have Josh Allen. So with you having Josh Allen, that makes a lot of things easier. He elevates. I mean, he won the MVP this year for this season. He elevates whoever. I mean, he elevates Khalil Shakir, who got paid an extension. Hollins, Curtis Samuel, like they were playing their best ball because they had Josh Allen. You give Josh Allen somebody that as important to a football team as Devontae Adams has been, I think, and again, I understand that Devontae Adams, he may not want to play in cold, but hell, you played in New Jersey. So you played in Green Bay and had your best years. Obviously, it was alongside Aaron Rodgers when he was younger, but I think the biggest issue with the Bills is obviously their defense and how their defense was undependable in a lot of situations. But offensively, if you pair Devontae Adams with someone that has the arm strength and just the greatness of a Josh Allen, that will change, in my opinion, the trajectory of this Bills team. I think the Bills team is obviously, I mean, they were in the AFC Championship last year. I think they're good enough, obviously, to compete for a Super Bowl. Devontae Adams could put them over the top and have that dynamic one. Because you still have to figure out what's going to go on with James Cook. Because James Cook's talking like, yo, I ain't coming back unless I get paid what I feel like I deserve, and rightfully so. So you wanna have something sure on the roster, and I think that you get Devontae Adams, that just changes a lot. At number 3, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, it hurts my soul. Obviously, as a Commanders fan, but when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, bro, they have one dependable player, and that is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had one of the best seasons for a wide receiver last year, and that's not hard to tell why. I mean, there's nobody else on the roster. Yes, I don't think that wide receiver should be their number one focus. They definitely need a running game. They need to figure out what's going on with their defense, and they need to figure out if they're going to pay Micah Parsons. But last year, it was clear as day that the only offensive piece that they have is CeeDee Lamb. And don't get me wrong, bro. I don't think Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. But one thing that we have seen is when Dak Prescott has help, when Dak Prescott has a team that is around him, when he has more than one weapon, they can win a lot. So now I don't know what they're going to do with their new coach as far as what Schottenheimer. I don't know if he's Brian Schottenheimer. I don't know if he's the guy, but that's who they picked. But Devontae Adams alongside or being a second option to a CeeDee Lamb, that just opens up a team that already has struggles, Zach Martin retired, already has struggles at the offensive line, already has struggles running back wise. At least you will have the tight end, and honestly, you have the wide receiver and the tight end because you have Ferguson. Tight end positions locked up. You pair Devontae Adams with CeeDee Lamb, that would help out the Dak Prescott exponentially. So I don't know if it's going to happen because, again, I just feel like Dallas needs to figure a lot of things out and soon. But I think Devontae Adams would be a perfect fit for Dallas. And they play in a dome. Even though it's falling apart, and you hope you don't go into the sun for some reason. But I think Devontae Adams on the Dallas Cowboys would be great. Number 2, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I understand that Pittsburgh has to figure out their quarterback thing. Do they want and are they going to pay Russell Wilson? Do they want and are they going to pay Justin Fields? Are they going to go out and get another quarterback, maybe another bridge quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Kirk Cousins? I don't know. But I honestly don't think that quarterback should be their number one priority. I think that Russell Wilson showed that he's good enough to be the quarterback, a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, when you see they lost, 7 straight, but look at the teams that they played. Like, it's going to be tough when you play, the Ravens twice, when you play the Chiefs. Like, you might lose those games. I think their last win was against the Commanders last year, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be tough. But there were a lot of glaring issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And honestly, obviously you would hope that your quarterback can supersede those issues. But sometimes you can't. And I think the number one issue in Pittsburgh is their offensive line. They need to figure that out because whether it was I think it helped Justin Fields a little bit more because he's more of a mobile quarterback, but he can't throw the ball downfield, at least deep. You need to figure that out. And then it was clear as day, and I mean bright light clear, how depleted they were outside of George Pickens. Yes, Pat Freiermuth is a great tight end, but outside of that, Najee Harris, he's going to be a free agent. He may not be back. They don't. Jaylen Warren is cool. They don't really have another dependable skill player outside of George Pickens. So you get someone that is as much football as he's played in his career. You don't really have to worry much about Devontae Adams. You pair him alongside pair him alongside George Pickens and this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Again, they have a lot to figure out. Their defense was just, I'm not going to say it was terrible, but it let them down a lot down the stretch of the season. They need to figure that out. They need to figure out the offensive line, but they also need to get more weapons because right now they only have one dependable deep threat down the field, one dependable wide receiver. Shouts out to Calvin Austin, but he was a rookie. That's about out. They had Mike Williams, but he didn't really do much when he came to the team. I think that Van Jefferson, but still, that's not. I think Devontae Adams would help tremendously when we talk about a wide receiver room that is in desperate need of more explosion outside of George Pickens. And I do think that Devontae Adams may be able to be a role model type for George Pickens because, as we've seen, he is a crash out waiting to happen. So I think Devontae Adams would be great. Who did they release? Oh, I think that. Sorry, I'm checking to see if any breaking news is happening. for the NFL. And right now, it says the Saints released Jamal Williams, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think Devontae Adams would be great. He'd be a great number 2 to George Pickens. So I have, and that's another thing. When you are looking around, and this is a discredit to the Steelers, when you're looking around and you're George Pickens, like, I'm the only one here that has any, like, what are you going to do to me? Offensively, you ain't got nobody, bro. Y'all need me more than I need you. Maybe that's why Mike Tomlin be allowing some of the stuff with George Pickens to happen. But that I don't know. But I think that number 2 would be the Steelers. And number 1, as unfortunate as that would be for America, I think number 1 would be Kansas City. One of their biggest issues outside of their biggest issue was the offensive line, but one of their issues is they didn't have a dependable receiver outside of Xavier Worthy, who was a rookie. Rashid Rice going down. Sky Moore has been a disaster. Devontae Adams would be great for that team. You also have DeAndre Hopkins, who is is close to the end of his career, obviously, than the beginning. But you pair Devontae Adams would, Travis Kelce is still going to go down as one of, if not the greatest receiving tight end of all time. He had a forgettable season. I'll say that. The whole offense pretty much had a forgettable season. I think that Devontae Adams, it just gives you a dependable, and I think Devontae Adams right now in his career is better than DeAndre Hopkins. Especially what we saw this year. One game that sticks out to me for Devontae Adams is the game when he was a Raider against the Ravens, and he killed the Ravens. He's the biggest reason why the Ravens lost that game. So I think if you put that type of weapon on the Kansas City Chiefs, it just makes them as formidable as possible. Now they have to figure out what they're going to do with some of their players, but yeah. Number 5, I have the Patriots. Number 4, I have the Bills. Number 3, I have the Cowboys. Number 2, I have the Steelers. Number 1, and I think the perfect spot for Devontae Adams would be the Kansas City Chiefs. And damn, imagine that: Rashid Rice, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and Devontae Adams alongside Isaiah Pacheco. That'd be crazy. And Travis Kelce. That'd be crazy. But yeah. I'm interested to see what happens with Devontae Adams, because I don't think that he is good enough, obviously, with his age to be a number 1 receiver. So I don't think he's going. The reason why I picked those 5 places is because I don't think that he is going to be, outside of the Patriots, I don't think he's going to be like the top dog. But a lot of those places he goes to, he will be the second option, or he'd be a number 1, but you have a bevy of other players like the Bills. He'd probably be the number 1 option, but you still have Shakur, you still have Amari Cooper. I am also interested to see what happens with Cooper Kupp. But yeah, I don't think he's still number 1 receiver, but I do think that he is good enough to be a top tier number 2. I'll say that. Or I don't think he has the consistency to be a number 1, but he has the consistency to be a great number 2. Maybe like Deebo. I don't know. We'll see. Lastly, before we go, we have the unpopular topic of the day. And I started this episode saying that the underlining topic for this episode is going to be coverage. And I wanted to talk about something. I talked about this last episode, but I understand how thorough you want to be when figuring out who you're going to draft, especially when you're a top team drafting, because this could essentially be your job, and it can also be franchise defining if you get the right or wrong player. You're looking to invest millions upon millions on these players. You want to be as thorough as possible. I understand. I understand that with you being as thorough as possible, you want to you want to know that whoever you're picking is able to excel in different type of situations and able to bring your franchise from, obviously, if you're a top tier pick, from obscurity to prosperity. I get that. You can't really tell a billionaire how to spend their money. So if you're an organization, I understand that you want to be as thorough as possible. And I understand that the combine is one of the best ways to figure out the type of player that you possibly could invest in. As you guys can see, I'm teeing it up because I'm going to now express one of the biggest issues that I have with the combine, because you guys know that one of my biggest issues is it makes GMs, it makes scouts lazy, because a lot of people take what they get from the combines and just makes it law. And it's like, what was the point of playing the season if you're not really if you're gonna lean more heavily into the combine than you are gonna be the tape? But another issue I have, and honestly, if you want to, how do I say this? I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that say how wrong I am, but I don't care, because I believe that I'm right, and a lot of people believe I'm right. There is a racial undertone to how the combine and how some of these prospects get talked about. Yes, there are some exceptions, like Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel, some of the verbiage that was surrounding him obviously wasn't the greatest because of his off-the-field antics. Same thing as Baker Mayfield. Some of his on-field and off-the-field issues was highlighted, obviously, in the combine. But when I say that I feel that there's a racial undertone when we talk about the combine, it seems like when you're a player who has confidence in themselves and you just so happen to be of a darker color, they use different type of words. And it came up when they were talking about Shedeur Sanders, who, Deion Sanders' son, quarterback of Colorado, expected to be a high draft pick. And they call him brash and arrogant. And my thing is, when I listen to Shedeur talk, I understand that they may hear brash and arrogant. I hear confidence. I hear somebody that understands how good he is. And I always wonder why that is so frowned upon. When we talk about some people in the draft, they did that with Cam Newton. They did that with Vince Young. They did that with Lamar Jackson. And the thing that sucks the most, and the reason why I really wanted to talk about this, is because being called arrogant or brash hurts. hurts the draft stock of Shedeur Sanders more than anything. Look, I think that one player I hear Shedeur get compared to is Caleb Williams, who another player that they said was arrogant and had behavioral problems during the combine. I think Shedeur Sanders has a lot of traits that Caleb Williams have. I just think Caleb Williams is a better player. I wouldn't be surprised if Shedeur fell, not because he's not good, but because people think he's brash and arrogant. I don't think, I'll just say it. Fuck it. People don't like African Americans to be confident in themselves. They think African Americans not being confident in themselves is a negative, which is crazy because isn't that what you want if you're drafting somebody high? Why is it that another quarterback who is confident in himself is confident, but because Shedeur Sanders knows how good he is and knows his value and thinks that he can be a game changer for an organization, why is he brash and arrogant? Why is Cam Newton, a Heisman winner, a national champion, why is he difficult to deal with? That's what they said about Cam Newton. Why is Caleb Williams hard to embrace? They said that last year. Because he knows how good he wants to be. I hate when the combine does that. It just shows that you don't want African Americans to be confident in themselves. It just scares them. It scares you. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying that if he does fall, I'm not saying that this is going to be the key reason, but what I am saying is this is going to be a reason. Do you know who his dad is? Deion Sanders was Deion Sanders was the most confident player in NFL history. He would not hesitate to tell you how good he was. And he was right. So what, you think his son is not going to be the same way at the quarterback position? And the crazy thing is, obviously I'm not in these interviews, I'm not in these one-on-ones, but everything I've heard from Shedeur Sanders sounds like confidence. So why is it that when African Americans are confident, they're brash, they're arrogant, they are difficult to deal with, they could be culture killers? So does that mean that you don't want a confident player to go high or to lead your team? Does that mean that Tom Brady wasn't confident? Does that mean that TJ Watt's not confident? Does that mean that who else? Does that mean that Will Levis wasn't confident when you drafted him? Does that mean that Justin Herbert's not confident? Trevor Lawrence not? You just paid Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert. Does that mean that Trevor Lawrence isn't confident? Oh, but when Shedeur Sanders is confident about his ability to change an organization, that's brash and arrogant. Okay. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow the podcast, and I appreciate everyone that has subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you like the content, if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend or seeing, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. If that isn't subscribed, it means so much to me. Also, for all my DSP listeners, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, if you like hearing this luscious voice of mine, please subscribe. Please follow. It means so much. No platform is more important than the other. I love all my YouTube followers. I love all my DSP followers. All of you guys are important as far as me growing. So if you know someone, if you like the content and you know someone that is not following the DSPs but loves listening to DSPs, please ask them or tell them to follow. Also, from my social media people, Instagram, TikTok, I post pretty much daily. Go follow, subscribe. It means a lot. That's where you get stories. That's where you get reels. That's where you get you can go back and forth one-on-one. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. You have an opinion and you listen to me. And all three I appreciate. So TikTok, Instagram, link in the description below. Please follow. Until next time, much love.